and we're recording to the cloud. So Neve, thanks for coming in or coming online today to talk about this. And today we are talking about superpowers, and in specific, the divine flow of energy that when we harness it in the sexual setting, it can become a superpower for ourselves to accelerate our own personal evolution, also our relational evolution. And so right off the bat, I just want to open up that this is an invitation for all of us to explore the divine energy that's flowing through all of us and to see sex as a practice of intimate connection and flow of energy rather than what our kind of cultural viewpoint is, and that is of like a climatic physical release. And I really think that with this perspective, it becomes a dance between the divine masculine and the divine feminine that's flowing through all of us constantly, whether we're aware of it or not, whether you're a man or a woman. And like, how do you feel about that? And can you speak to the importance of this, like in our culture, of just shifting a viewpoint?
Yeah, and thanks for having me on your podcast. It's lovely to be here. I feel that there's so many things I could share with this, but to be able to shift the energy from being just a physical practice into being a spiritual practice, just in the basic way, is more loving. I feel like there's just more actual unconditional love that is shared in that type of setting. I think it allows people to heal or change from maybe feeling sad or used or having some not lovely emotions around and sexual interaction to just feeling so much love that they want to share it with anyone that they run into that day because they've had such a overflow of unconditional love energy and bliss.
That's cool. Yeah, it's true. So I'm curious, like so you're a yoga teacher, you're a yoga health coach. And so what brought you into the space of like wanting to explore this and
becoming a sex guide,
yeah.
sacred sex guide. Yeah, I think based on my own experiences with sacred sex, I just felt like it had been something that I had been searching for. When I had sex with my partners, I felt that there was more, but there was more that could be experienced than just orgasms and, closeness. I'm a very spiritual person, and I was like, I know there's something spiritual with this interaction, but I don't really understand it. And after having a teacher and being taught how to cultivate that energy so it's transmuted from just sexual energy, which is great, into spiritual energy, just in that first encounter, I felt a desire and a longing to share that with other people. I breathed the purple flame of Dharma into my heart during a meditation a yoga event, and I had a vision of me teaching and sharing sacred sex with others. And so since I've experienced that and the meditation, I've just been sort of following the universe and seeing where and how can that really play out in my life and benefit others, and so that they can experience the bliss and the unconditional love that I felt in that experience. I felt like I was experiencing the divine. Like I felt like instead of studying who God was or studying what the divine is, it was like I was experiencing the divine in my body, and it blew me away. And I really want to be able to help others create that experience for themselves.
Very cool. Yeah, it's really powerful because it's like just a shift. It's a shift of perspective of understanding that energy is flowing through us, and we have that potential to connect with it and really reach these expanded ecstatic states. And it can be through It can be in the sexual setting with a partner, or even with yourself, or it can even come through with dance and movement and through other practices. And I feel like a lot of our culture is missing the boat, especially in this department, because we're influenced in so many different ways to view sex as like, I don't know, it becomes this almost like power trip. And I don't know, it gets taken out of hand. And just like a lot of things in our culture, whether it's food, drugs, and alcohol, and just overeating, shopping, all these different things, we become pleasure junkies, and we miss the potential to turn it into like a divine union with ourselves and with a partner, and to really, again, just like reach those expanded ecstatic states. And it's cool because like this energy, it's what created all of us, like you, me, all of us listening to this, any living and breathing animal and human, like we were all created through this act of sexual creation. And so it's that creativity being brought through us, and it's that creative energy. And even kids, when they're growing up, like they have this curiosity about their body parts. And like I wasn't taught how to understand my body in this way. And not that there was anything wrong about that, but I feel like, again, we're just kind of missing a really powerful opportunity to teach our youth about like how to use our body and how to tap into this energy and share that. And I know you're a mother, and this is a passion of yours as well, is just like understanding the importance of teaching this to the youth. And so I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was taught that sex was sacred and I shouldn't have it. and then I was released into the world, and it was sad. It was, it was a bummer to go through the culturals feeling used, or maybe manipulating and using men, like being on both ends of that and trying to navigate like what do I do with this energy, and like what am I supposed to do with all this stuff. And I feel that it could be so easy now to help the youth. And it's not that you like, no, you shouldn't do that. I mean, everybody wants to have sex. You feel it in your body. It's a natural thing. And I think guiding the youth, guiding young people into more of this is a very sacred practice. It's very special to open up in that way and be close to someone. So you just want to be careful whose energy you're sharing with, because it's mixing and blending with your energy, and that is going to kind of dictate how you feel afterwards too, right? It's that whatever that person's energy is mixing with yours. So not only your intention going into it, but then also just their energy. And so I think telling young people teaching them about how it's sacred and spiritual energy, not just sexual energy or physical energy, and that using wisdom when they're deciding to interact with people can change the way maybe that some young people will come into adulthood. And I think that could be really powerful, because there's a lot of powerful energy in sacred, spiritual, sexual energy. Like it can be a very, like you were saying, this is superpower. It can be a superpower, and maybe that's how we could lure the youth in. I don't know. Could be. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. And you brought up a word as well, and that is that of intention, and like the power of intention. And that's the difference between like just getting off, like that physical release that I feel like a lot of our culture is chasing. And it's the difference between just that, or again, just deepening this connection to yourself and connecting with the divine within you, and also relationally, like connecting you and sharing your divine intimacy with that of a partner. And so like, even if one doesn't have a partner, like how can the intention of this like reshape how someone approaches this practice, like whether it's with themselves or with a partner?
I think having the intention to really just be in the body and be with your senses, and what if when you're in with a partner, usually people have expectations, or they have um, goals, like, hey, we're both going to have orgasms, or whatever the goal is, and so being able to allow that to drop. And the same thing with say you're masturbating, right? More focused on your breath and moving energy. It's like more about circulating the energy in your body and feeling that, and then maybe going and writing afterwards, or going and painting and using that creative spiritual energy instead of just like letting it release. And it doesn't mean that orgasms are bad. That's fine. You can have orgasms, and there is more, and your intention behind whether you're being sexual with yourself or with someone else is kind of what dictates what happens with that energy, whether it flows out or if it circulates through the body. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. And so it sounds like when using it as like a practice of exploration of that flow of energy, it can be used for a lot of like healing, personal healing, and also like interrelational healing and just deepening connections. And I really like how you said like letting go of the agenda or letting go of the goal, right? It's like just like having the intention of just connecting and being without an agenda, without a goal, without an expectation. It opens up the door for that healing and for deeper states of connection. And then again, it's just like that sharing and merging of energy. So it becomes, again, like that. I just love the phrase divine union. And I believe that's a book. And
Yeah, it is a divine union. And I think it's also like taking yoga into the bedroom or the shower or wherever you're at is taking, because what is that? It's asking you, instead of thinking about the future or like your goal, or thinking or just thinking in general, is it just to just be present with your senses and with the energy. And that is yoga, right? It's being more in the present moment in union with the divine. So it's changing your sexual masturbation time into a yoga practice, if you will.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And so even like, yeah, tying it into yoga, like we have these four aims of yoga. We have the kama, we have artha, dharma, and moksha. Like artha is like how we're living. Are we supporting ourselves and like living in a nice space, or are we just like living in the dirt? Dharma, our duty, like our unique gifts. How are we offering this to our community? And then kama, the sensuality. How are we really enjoying life with our senses? And so I really like how you brought that up, of like you can bring it into a practice of like really engaging with the senses and like how does this feel? And when we let go of an agenda, we can really experience it through the senses, and you connect with the subtleties, like the real sensuality of just connection and touch and breath and sensation and feeling and smell and all these things, just to really deepen our experience. And I feel like that almost leads to a sense of like personal liberation or moksha, like that kind of spiritual connection, like spiritual ecstatic expansion. So I just really like how this all kind of comes together in that context.
Yeah,
so
and
how
I
about,
think that, oh, sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, I think that it's, if you're in the kama, if you're in the pleasure and that sacred union practice, that is, you do experience moksha. And that's why in the, Tantra is huge, but in that one little part of Tantra where they talk about sex, that's the whole aim, is to experience enlightenment through connecting with someone else in a sexual way, is to then reach enlightenment that way. And that it's a really fun way to do it, in my opinion.
So it's like the merging of, like, just coming back to the merging of the masculine and feminine qualities, and it's that energy. It starts down in our root, right? It's what grounds us, and then we allow that to move up through the body, and it just activates our energy centers and really connects us with these energetic portals that are a lot of the times just resting dormant because we're in our head and we're in our mind and we're thinking, and rather than feeling and embracing that flow of energy moving through us. And I really think that this can tap us into creativity. And when uh, using this flow of energy as a way for like sexual creativity. And again, like this is at our core. This is like why we're here. We are here because other people have come together in this context of like creating and merging and embracing. And yeah, what are you going to say?
I just wanted to touch on when you brought up like the divine feminine and the divine masculine. I think in order to experience the enlightenment part, in order to really, I feel like there's some boxes that have to really get checked in order to get into that feeling, the experience of the divine, or that just the spiritual enlightenment part of the interaction is, and one of them is individually being balanced with your masculine and feminine energy. I think that both people, I feel like I said, there's a couple boxes, but I feel like both people need to be, or not even okay with, but really embrace the masculine side of them and the feminine side. And when we say masculine and feminine, we're not saying male and female. We're saying like this, more intuitive, creative feminine energy, and then like maybe more logical and rational masculine energy, or circular energy and square energy, right? It's the yin and the yang. I mean, however you want to say it, it's like these two polar energies that are in all of us. I feel like there needs to be a nice balance of that. And then you have that balance within you. You have that, I have that balance in me, you have that balance in you. And then, and then when you come together with a partner, there's like two masculine energies and two feminine energies that can then intermingle and play. I don't know if that was good or not, but I just think that it's important to know that it's not, I think it's challenging to just jump in and then be like, I'm enlightened. Like there's definitely work that needs to go in to get into that place. And the other thing I would say is like being able to really trust whoever you're with, and being able to be vulnerable and really appreciative and loving. Those are some of those other boxes that just have to be there. And I think the last one I would mention is you can't be in your head. You have to be in your body. That's why the agenda has to drop.
Absolutely. Yeah. So was that all the boxes there? Or like, could you go through and kind of like, what are some other key points that we need to be aware of? This way we can enter it as this dance of merging of masculine and feminine.
I think those are definitely some of the main points or the main boxes that would need to be checked. They're not necessarily the easiest boxes to check. I mean, to be able to be vulnerable, to really trust your partner, that might take some self-healing, and that self-healing could be alone moving energy in a sexual self-practice. But I think that it's not like, okay, yeah, I got that, tick, 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 all right, I'm ready. I feel like there's a little bit, you have to love yourself. You have to really love yourself. And if you don't, then you can't really love your partner, because you're still thinking, and then you're thinking about like what the other person, you need from the other person. But if you're already whole, then two wholes come together. I feel like that's really where where the magic can happen. As far as jumping into the practice tomorrow, I would say, you should take my course. But other than that, I would say eye contact. Like if you can focus on your breath and you can keep eye contact with the other person, both of those are going to start to shift the energy. So even if you're not sure you're ready to jump into bliss or union with the divine, you can at least start to shift and experiment with the energy by keeping eye contact and starting to become aware of your breathing.
So it seems like that's when it becomes a meditation and a practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really, I feel like that's where you're starting to shift it from a physical encounter to a meditation, which is still really sexy and, it's still very pleasurable. It's not like, meditation, like, oh man, it's not like you have to sit in silence. You still get to touch the other person and kiss them and stuff. It's just that you're mindful while you're doing it and you're in that moment. I feel like it's very easy for the mind always to wander, but specifically in sex, especially if you're not already in this wholeness with yourself, right? And based on my past, I remember my mind going all these other places except right in that moment. And so that's why I said it. I feel like it takes a couple things to line up in order for the magic to happen.
So would you say that it begins with self-acceptance and self-love and like honoring our own selves first? And so we can create that wholeness within ourselves so we can then show up as a whole person with a balanced body and a balanced mind, and then letting go of the agenda allows us to connect with the other person in a way that allows us to stay present and open.
Yeah, I think it definitely starts with self-love, self-acceptance. And that's why I was trying to pull this up so I could share it, but it doesn't want to be shared. Unfortunately, it doesn't want to be shared. But when I did my webinar on the course that I'm doing, I kind of broke it down in the course. There's like 4 modules. And the first module is about the healing and releasing the past, right? It's really about starting to become more whole within yourself. And the self-love practices are then in the second module. So it's like releasing and then getting whole, and then, your own practices, and then the magic. So it's kind of, it has a progression. And I think that anyone individually, going through it starts with you and really loving yourself. And I feel like people talk about that, like, oh, love yourself. And it's kind of, well, how do you really love yourself? I mean, Alec and I are both health coaches. So, the ways that we love ourselves is through living dinacharya, is through taking care of the body and the mind, the spirit. I think that that's definitely an important part. And I also think there's other practices you can do to amplify your self-love, like just putting your hands on your heart and being like, I love you, Neve. I love you. And really owning it and believing it and feeling it. And you can feel, if you do it right now, if you're listening to this, you can put your hands on your heart if you're not driving anything, and maybe close your eyes and just feel like, I love you, and feel the energy. And it's subtle, but it's there, and it will shift. So things like that. I don't want to be too, I wanted to give at least one thing about self-love, because it's just important. You can't really get to these other places unless you really love yourself. And I've had people come to me often and be like, what does that even mean? Like, what do you mean love yourself? So that would be one example, just telling yourself you love yourself.
Yeah. It sounds like doing, like, even just the practice of loving yourself can bring up a lot of fear. Because there's a lot of stuff that we hold on to. And you were speaking about how even just the first module of your course is about like releasing and connecting. And there's a lot of stuff that we can be scared to look at about ourselves. And that could be based on just like past experiences or cultural programming, even like unconscious familial programming passed down from us that we're not even aware of. And it sounds like a lot of this is like just loving yourself and embracing those fears for what they are and allowing them to be unearthed and seen and accepted, and just sending love to those parts really helps us connect to ourselves and love ourselves and really appreciate ourselves for just being the best that we can, and knowing that it's going to take some work to really connect with ourselves like on a deeper level. And Yeah, like for me, self-love, it comes down to like the daily things that we do for ourselves that really help support us, support our physical body, number one. And then next is supporting our mind and our emotions. And then how that supports our connection with our spiritual self, with our higher self, and how when we have an even flow and a nice practice that's helped support those three areas, we can really begin to connect and love ourselves on a deeper level. And it begins with the small actions that we do every day. And like both of us, we teach these actions, and it's like they are powerful. They're so simple, yet they're so powerful. And over time, they build up momentum to really take us to the depths of our being, and to the depths of our mind, and to the depths of our spirit. And how when we do that, we can really then show up and get into the depths of like our partner as well, to the depths of them physically, emotionally, and even spiritually. But it starts with ourselves and showing up and being whole for ourselves.
Yeah, and I would say too, another, and I don't want to give you all the practices in my course, but looking at your own eyes in the mirror. Like just, so you have the hand on your heart practice now from this recording, and then also looking at your own eyes. And the temptation is going to be to not look at your eyes and to look at the imperfections that you perceive on your face or whatever. And so then letting the mind calm down, staying there long enough so that you can see the divine God or goddess in your eyes. And I feel like that is a good practice to have if you want to be experiencing enlightenment through a partner one day, right? Is just to be able to do that, because you're going to be looking into their eyes. That's a really important part of the practice. And if you can't look in your own eyes, how are you going to look in your partner's eyes when you're coming? Like, it's important. It's an important practice. So I want people to have at least one or two things after listening to this that they can do to increase that love and acceptance of themselves. Because it really does start there.
That's cool. I like that.
Have you done it?
Looked in my own eyes? Yeah.
What about, have you done it with the one where you have the candle? There's one where you take a candle.
That's that's a shamanic practice as well. And I read about that in a book, Shaman Healer Sage, written by Alberto Villoldo. He's an anthropologist and studied with South American shamans. And I remember doing that one a couple years ago, and I would really like to revisit that practice. Because it's like half of your face is lit up and you can only see one eye in the mirror. And I remember my face then like transforming and looking like it was turning into like other animals and other energies and other really interesting things. And I've also, so actually one of my spiritual mentors and meditation guides, we do a practice. It's an open eye meditation. And this is just coming back to like really connecting and embracing the masculine and feminine qualities within both of us, because both of us are male. And we do this open eye meditation where we lock eyes and we drop ourselves into our heart, and we then intentionally raise the energy to dissolve and really connect and allow that divine energy to flow through us. And it's really interesting what comes through, but it comes down to letting go of like this practice of like intimate connection can really be done in a way that is even not sexual, which I find to be very beneficial, therapeutic, and healing, and also like uplifting and supportive as well. And I think that's when like this practice of whether it's like locking eyes, or even if it is in the sexual context where you're connecting with your partner and being embracing physically, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually, it can become a superpower. Hey, you're a little closer now.
Yeah, the sunlight's starting to come in the window.
Yeah. But I feel like that's when it becomes, or it has the potential to become, a superpower for like really transforming yourself and awakening yourself to really sense and open yourself up to the expansiveness that's always within us. Yeah,
Have
what do
you
you think
ever,
about that?
no, I think it's cool. It's cool. I want to keep going on this. Have you ever, have you done any acro yoga or any acro yoga classes or?
I have. And so the first experience I had with that, like very little, I think I've done it like 3 times. And it was actually very similar to that of the meditation experience I was just sharing, because my base, he's a man, and it was just really interesting in this. Again, it's like this dance of like yin and yang, of support and surrender. And I can really see how that would be therapeutic as well in this context of just connecting with someone else and trusting and feeling the support of them.
Yeah, and it's cool. I didn't well, I've taught acro some, and I've done a bunch of it for a few years, and there was a practice that we did before a class, and I've actually done it with my clients in health coaching when we were live once. But it's where you look in the other person's eyes and you tell them what you see. So, and this could be a great like warm-up exercise for an intimacy practice. Whether it's sexual or not, it's just an intimate practice. But you look in the other person's eyes and say, "The beauty I see in you is," or "The gold I see in you is." So, I know you're like in California and I'm in Virginia and I can't really see your eyes, but the beauty, the beauty that I see in you is compassion. The gold I see is understanding. The beauty I see in you is wisdom. You have a goofy smile on your face, but yeah. That's like the idea though, is like you're just, and whatever you see in the other person's eyes is actually also in you, right? But we did that in an acro class just to build up the trust before we're balancing each other. And I just think it's cool. Like the eyes are the doorway to the soul. And when your souls are blending in a sexual, spiritual practice, you gotta have your eyes open. So I think all of these kinds of things, it's so interesting. I mean, there was 50 people in this room when we were doing this class, and everyone was rotating in the intimacy. Like I felt like we were dropping deeper in and down into just this like unity consciousness soul vibe. It was so powerful, and it's so needed in our culture.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, yeah, there's so much stuff in our culture that's driving us out of that unity and just keeping us in that zone of being pleasure junkies and just like chasing the sex and chasing the shopping and the next hit of feel good hormone based on like just whether it's food or whatever. And we're missing the deeper connections. And a lot of it I feel like is like we're not getting and fostering those deeper connections, except for in these really, really small communities that are growing and evolving and spreading, which is really beautiful to see. But I think a lot of that is what's continuing to drive like the majority of the population into this state of like unfulfillment in a lot of different ways. And I mean, that's even why, like I read a stat this morning, that's why 40% of American adults are like considered obese now, and 20% of American children are considered obese now. And it's like, it's because of that. We're not having these intimate connections, and we're chasing fulfillment in different ways when we could be really just connecting with ourselves, loving ourselves, and then sharing that with our communities, with our partners, with our families, whether that is through, a yoga practice or a different just like tantric practice of just connecting with another person in a way that includes touch, or it could be in the bedroom or in the shower in a sexual way, like wherever you find yourself. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. It makes a good point because the society and the culture is prompting us to look outward and to find fulfillment outward. And it's really inward that we find our fulfillment, and we don't actually need anything, right? Except us. So I think that it just presence is why you and I are, both did health coaching, why we wanted to be here now doing this stuff, creating these kind of communities that can connect and can get to a deeper level of experiencing life and fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
So powerful. I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that this is what we do.
Yeah. support people to support themselves and to tell them that it's okay, and like embrace the fear, embrace the challenge, embrace the discomfort of going within and like really facing yourself and facing your unconscious patterns and behaviors of why you're doing what you're doing.
Mm.
And so you did mention something. I think it'd be a disservice to not speak of this as well, of like the sexual enlightenment part, and how we can really connect with somebody and create an
Yeah.
experience to experience that. And so if you could speak about that.
I mean, I could definitely speak about it. There's like, you know, it's like if all those boxes get checked, if it's time for you in your journey to experience enlightenment through a sexual spiritual practice, then you know, I don't really know what you want me to share about this, but I feel like it's one of the most beautiful things. Like we talked funnel of the wave, and it's just like this really spiritual vortex where there is no time and space, and you feel, well, what I have felt is the divine. You know, I feel it's hard to put like everything, not so much your body or to anything around you. Your vision will change. Like your everything looks very vivid. I don't know. It looks very colorful. It's like, you know, probably similar to if you're on drugs. Like, I don't know. It's very, because you're on a love drug of unconditional love. And to create that is, like we're saying, all those things have to be lined up. And then it's really just having the intention to just be there with the partner and no agenda, and to connect and focus on your breathing and your eye contact. And I think a lot of gratitude, really, like telling your partner what you're grateful, you know, while you're in the act. And then, you know, there's more things that can happen. Like the woman's energy can shift from being a sexual energy into being a spiritual energy. And there's definitely signs of that. And, you know, men can learn how to orgasm and not ejaculate. And so like there's all these other layers and levels that you can explore, so that the act maybe is like 2 or 3 hours of just energy exchanging. And what happens is there's a couple different traditions, but essentially they're all doing the same thing, is where if you are circulating energy through your body and I'm circulating energy through my body, it's like we're creating, there's a couple different ways, right? You could create the circle. Some people do it like an infinity. Some it's going through one person into the other, through them back into you. So it's kind of more of like a U. Depends on what practice you're studying and trying to do. And that's your intention and how you're directing your own energy. And it doesn't really matter, as far as I'm concerned, which one that you're doing, if you're sharing that energy. And you might see or feel colors, or, you know, you might have, I've had, with one person, I had like past life, I remembered a past life with that person, that we had a flashback from a life that we had before. And I was the man, he was the woman, and we both had the same vision. It was really crazy. So like a lot of cool, crazy stuff can happen when you get into that space. It's very spiritual and precious. But it's really, you know, sharing energy, however you want to direct it, based on whichever tradition you want to follow, really. I think just sending it back and forth is a good way to start.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's really cool. And again, I think it comes back to like viewing it as an exploration to really just explore that flow of energy, and see it as a way to just deepen intimate connection and to move energy and to share the energy, rather than just looking at it as like a climatic physical release. And it's like there's a big difference. And when you can enter it with that perspective of a dance, of that dance of the energy of the masculine and the feminine within both people, then we can really see it for like how it can help us heal and move through and let go and release a lot of old conditionings, beliefs, uh, thoughts, emotions, and bring us into that space of like unconditional love and connection and expansion. And so
I think there's a lot of healing that happens without you having to necessarily know everything that's happening. Like I feel like I received a lot of healing just being in that space with someone and embracing the present moment and them, and even in my own practices, just letting the energy flow. It feels like I don't actually have to know exactly everything that's being healed, but I feel more whole. I feel nourished versus being a young woman and having sex and feeling used, which is like, those are these two sides. And it's like, let's go into the intentional, mindful side so that we've experienced more unconditional love, agape love instead of just eros love or philios love, or, being in this more unconditional space, because that's really what we are at our core, is unconditional love.
yeah, absolutely. It is. That it is there, and it takes openness to see it as such and to allow it to be as such and to embrace it and accept it and appreciate like all that is within us, like all these potentials for connection and healing. And yeah, so I think it's time that we wrap this up. This has been really
Yeah, it
fun to
was
talk about.
really great conversation. I
Yeah.
love talking about this, if you couldn't tell. So thank you for inviting me on here.
Yeah, definitely. So where can people find out about you and your course, and yeah, and if they want to learn more about this type of stuff?
Yeah, so my website is www.yoginineve.com. So it's yoginineve.com. So there's a lot of I's and E's and N's, which is fine. It's Yogini Neve. And on my homepage, there's a free self-love practice, which I found out afterwards. It's kind of advanced, but I invite anyone to do that. It's just like getting ready to be with someone. So it's a 5-day kind of do one each day kind of thing, and that's free if you want to do that. And then I have a tab on my website that's love, and that's where you can find more about the Love Alchemy course, which is for single people or people in relationship. It's the foundation. It's laying the foundation before the advanced sex magic course, right? It's just get all the healing and all the self-love stuff down and start to explore the spiritual energy with a partner. And then so that's on my website. My Facebook page is Yogini Neve. My Instagram's Ever Free Spirit. I'm planning on doing an intimacy challenge actually next week, so that could be cool if anyone wants to. I don't know when you're going to post this, but if you get there and you're late, it's okay. You can jump in. It'll be fun.
Well, cool.
You can put that in the show notes too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll have links for people to catch up with you in all those places. And
thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing this. And again, I just want to leave everybody with, just coming back to it, just switching the perspective of exploring this divine energy that's flowing through all of us, flowing through you, me, and just to open up and to experience it and to feel it and to let go of any expectations and agendas and any goals in the process, and just to feel and be open. So thank you all for tuning in today. I appreciate you being here. And if you found any of this helpful, insightful, inspiring, uplifting, feel free to share it with a friend, a family member, the grocery store clerk, the guy pumping your gas, anybody and everybody who you feel like may benefit from this conversation. So until next time, take care and much love to you.